Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, are you in for a treat today as I'm bringing you another special guest? His name is John Baldino. John is the president of Humareso. We're going to talk more about that. He also hosts a podcast called But First Coffee, which I love that title. So I can't wait to hear more about that. And then he also does a little bit of speaking. I've seen him do a keynote at National SHRM. And John, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Bruce. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. We've been wanting to do this for a while. It's great.
We have, and I'm excited too. And I always like to start my show reflecting on like when I met my guests or when they maybe came into my path. And for you, we've kind of met through our SHRM circles. We through what they call the SHRM influencer group. A lot of former
Yes.
influencers that we hang out with, and we get to every time there's a national SHRM conference, we're all hanging out together.
Yes.
And I was thinking about SHRM 25. And one of the highlights for me at Sherm 25, of course, we had dinner one night. Your
Yes.
wife, Kathy,
Yeah,
joined us, which was
that's right.
awesome. And of course, many of the influencers, Jeff Palkowski, many of them have been former guests of the show, Kyra
Yeah,
Makovich,
that's right.
Paula Harvey, and more. But the highlight was this ice cream social at Sweet Things, and it was next to the convention center, and that was so much fun. I have a picture. I was just looking at that before I got on the show of this peanut butter chocolate, and me and you and Kai was
Right.
in a picture. What'd you think about that conference, and how was that social event?
So I mean, I think in some ways, in terms of the conference as a whole, I think you have to work hard to not find something that would resonate with you. There's so many offerings, so
Mm,
many different types of speakers. I know not everyone is a home run. I know, but you really would have to work hard to say nothing that was shared or talked about or connections made were of any, were a waste of time. Never true. I think you have to just kind of receive what's happening
mm,
around you. And you and I tend to kind of walk again in some
mm,
of these same circles. And I found the conference to be great. I got to chat with some folks. Sometimes I got to chat with people that I've known from afar and really get to then just
mm.
stand with them and unpack. And there's something about in real life, I think, that is super sweet, right? Than just the online connections. The social itself,
Mm.
and being social and hosting an ice cream social just seems to go well together.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had a bunch of people come
Mm,
through and grab some ice cream and, froyo or whatever, was there. And it just was fun. I mean,
mm.
it was a kind of a up in the air weather-wise in the afternoon. And then all of a sudden the sun was there and people were just sitting out and enjoying the sun.
Mm.
It was awesome to just have that.
Well, and I just love it because you brought people together.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
the power of connection, and that's what I enjoyed. I met some people. I met people. I got to connect with people I already know, and I got to meet
Yeah.
new folks, and I'm
Yeah.
connected with them today because of that. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate
Yes.
you. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to. There's many listeners on the show that don't know Humery. So would you share maybe a brief highlight of your
Sure.
organization and how you serve your customers?
Absolutely. So Humareso, in its simplest definition, is a full service HR consulting firm. And we serve in three main bucket areas. Think transactionally, technologically, and transformatively.
Mm,
So, right, tactically, we do a lot of the day-to-day transactional type full employee life cycle work, full employee experience. For some clients, we actually serve as their full outsourced human resources department for some of our smaller companies. And then we're another set of hands to a larger team.
mm,
Again, mostly in the US, a little bit overseas, but the bulk of it in the US. And we're kind of supporting in areas of leave management or payroll processing or benefits administration, something very specific for those larger companies. Technologically, we have three platforms really that focus on leadership development, employee engagement and performance management. And so
Mm,
those get activated at a variety of companies globally. And on our transformative end of things, that's where we get into a lot of the weeds from a strategic standpoint in workforce planning, right? So from recruiting to that employee experience post assignment to a particular role and how you upskill some of these folks and help them to see career map opportunities beyond the norm, right? And so a lot of coaching goes along with that, mergers and acquisition work. It's fun. We've
mm.
been doing this over 13 years now, so
Oh,
it's been a good time.
13 years.
Yes,
Wow.
sir.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. I love that.
Thank
And
you.
you know what? I know many of my guests that I get to interview, and there's always something I learned. I did not know you were global.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
you do
So
some
it's
work outside of the
really
US as
fun.
well.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
fantastic. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. It's funny because when I started the organization 13 plus years ago, my focus was primarily on the small business just to help them compete with what's happening
Mm,
on the larger.
mm,
And I will tell you, one of the principles that comes from my own experience with Humareso has been when you do good work,
mm,
it goes across verticals that you think it
mm,
will. It goes up and down the chain as far as industry size and scope. And so we have enterprise, all the way up through mid-market to enterprise level clients that are, hey, wait a minute.
mm.
We want a piece of that great work that you're doing. So, I try to tell people all the time, stay focused on doing the good work
Mm.
and the scale will come.
I love that. Focus on the good work and the skill will come. I love that. Well, I want to talk about, there's one of the things that I've heard you talk about. I've seen you post some things around, and it's around the future work. I want to kind of get into that today. But before we do that, I know you, John, but there's probably some things I don't know about you. I would love to know the John Baldino story. Like,
Oh
where did you
gosh.
grow up and how in the world did you get into HR and leadership and entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
all things HR?
So I'll give you some highlights, right? So I'm
Mm,
from Philadelphia,
mm,
lived in that area my whole life until a little over 4 years ago when I relocated to Florida,
mm,
in this next season of life with my wife Kathy.
mm-hmm.
After we've got our three kids grown and gone, and now we hold hands in the pool, and it's a great time. But yeah, the Philly area has really been is home for me.
Mm,
And so from a professional standpoint, my first true HR related work was in personnel back
mm,
in the late 80s and worked for a larger retail organization in the Northeast,
mm,
and then moved into a variety of areas of restaurant, hospitality, education,
mm,
technology, manufacturing and distribution, banking and finance, all kinds of industries, and applying, again, the good work of human
mm,
resources in these areas. And so grew my own skill sets, obviously, as a result. The entrepreneurial thing is really interesting because there's a lot of human resources folks who are not necessarily interested in opening their own thing.
mm.
And that's okay. I think that's terrific. For me, I would say living in South Philly, so if you have that rocky kind of mindset, that was my neighborhood.
I've ran the
Um,
steps.
yes,
I've
sir.
run the steps, man.
When Rocky, especially the first movie where he lives and all
Yeah,
of that sort of scenery that they show, literally that's my neighborhood. The church he goes to, that was my church.
it's
And
awesome.
so, right, so that gives you just kind of that visual. You had to be entrepreneurial. You had to think on
Mm,
your feet. Everybody was looking how to make a quick buck. And I remember being in first grade and I was never the strongest kid. But I was kind of smart. And so this other kid in first grade beat everybody up. Like that was the lunchtime recess game was he just took turns beating up another kid in the class. And so I thought, I don't want to be wrapped up in that. So I worked with him to become his agent and I
mm.
coordinated his schedule every day as to who he was going to beat up. And I never was on the list because I was the one who made sure that I got things put together. And so I think for me, that sort of gave me the window of, hey, I could probably like manipulate some things and create business and an opportunity. And that was the beginning of the entrepreneurial life.
Mm. That is fantastic. I love that. Now, when I think about Philly, I think about the Eagles, I think about a lot of sport. Did you
Yeah.
play sports when you were in high school?
So when I was a little kid, I did Little League for a little bit. Philly back then was very different, less organized sport
Yeah.
opportunity. I would
Yeah.
say, though, by the time I got to high school, I ran track.
Mm.
I did long jump, sprint. That was really what I did, winter and spring track.
Yeah. Yeah. A runner. Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah.
That's
And I'm
fantastic.
still running, and I hate every minute of it every day that I
That's
run. I hate
you
it.
can't
So.
stop. You can't stop. Man, I'm telling you, I love that. I love that. No, that's good stuff right there. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
When you got into like you decided, 13 years ago that you were going to start your organization. It's
Yeah,
got to be exciting and daunting at the same
yeah,
time because, like,
yeah.
all of a sudden now you're responsible for a lot. You got a lot of weight on your shoulders. Was there a moment? I always like to ask this question. Was there a moment, like when someone finds their lane, was there a moment when you said, "Hey, I found it. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I love to do. This is what I was called to do. This is my
Yeah.
purpose." Was there a moment, or maybe there were moments?
Yeah, I mean the first moment, the kickoff really comes to mind. So I had a wonderful job. I was serving as at a VP level
Mm-hmm.
for a national bank, and they were happy with me. I mean, we were doing great work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just had this sense it was time for me to move on. And I didn't really know fully if what became Humareso was really the baked idea that it could be. Um, and so I left my role um, on July 31st of 2012, and August 1st. And again, I wasn't 100% sure how this was going to go. And I mean, married, three kids. This was,
Yeah.
mortgage. Kids were still in school. Like, um,
You got
big,
bills.
scary. Got bills, scary. And my wife, that again, that you got to meet, Kathy. Like, she is the sweetest and most supportive,
Yeah.
but she was nervous as well, and rightfully so. And
Yeah.
so I remember the next morning, August 1st, having breakfast with a friend of mine, but he was also a business owner.
Hmm.
And he was like, I want to pick your brain with what you think you're going to do next. And
Hmm.
so we had breakfast. And before breakfast was over, I had signed him to be a client, my first client.
Wow.
And I remember going home right after that breakfast and Kathy saying to me, well, how was breakfast? And, just thinking it was, friends getting together. And I said, oh, it was great. By the way, he's now a client. His company is now a client. Was like, really? I said, I think this is going to work. And so
Wow.
that was one, like for sure, a solid moment of, yeah, I can see how this will scale,
Yeah.
and I see kind of better. I had much more clarity about how this could really go to market. That was a huge one, I think, in
Mm.
terms of confirmation for me.
I heard I was at a Mel Robbins motivational event probably 15 years ago, and I remember her saying a conversation can change your life.
Mm,
And
it's true.
that conversation right there really sparked Humareso. I love that. I love that
Yeah.
story. Hey, were there people along your journey, maybe it was before, or maybe it was during this process as you got going? Were there people, I like to call them mentors, I've heard other people call them
Mhm.
sponsors, that really helped you get to where you are today? And if there were, what was it about them that made them such a great mentor?
Yeah, I think through the years, pre-Humoriso, right? I mean, actually this month, I'm going to say this out loud, Bruce. This month is 35 years in human resources related work.
That is
Saying it out
fantastic. That's
loud. I'm saying it out
experience. It's
loud.
experience. I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
age. So through the years, like again, even before starting Humoriso, I just think about some good managers, directors, leaders that I
Yeah.
answer to. Not all of them were,
Yeah.
there's a few that really stand out to me. A guy named Pat and Casey, they just took interest in my
Mm.
development, and I think we underestimate that.
Mm.
Just taking interest in someone's development is so important. I had a manager named Mike who took a shot on me
Mm.
for a larger perspective, a larger role and I wanted it badly, but I don't know that I was fully qualified for it. And he we talked about this after the fact, and he was like, "Buddy, I had to go to bat for you." And he's like, "You haven't disappointed, but folks couldn't see it, but I could see it."
Wow.
And so someone to take a risk on
Mm,
you, I think, is huge.
mm,
And then I would say since starting Humareso, the power of kindness
mm,
by those around me who have shared a good word with someone, and even in the simplistic to say, listening to someone's scenario or circumstance and saying, who you should talk to? You should connect with John
mm,
Baldino. Let
mm,
me connect you to John. And that does not mean every time it became
mm,
some, high paying contract or anything
mm,
like that. In fact, many times it was just a conversation. It was
mm,
just providing a perspective for that person who needed to hear a different perspective. But what came from that as time went on was just that sort of web of based on that kindness of,
mm,
hey, you should look at Humareso. Hey, do you know
mm,
John? Hey, let me tell you about this person that works at Humareso. And just all of that started to spread. And I think the kindness of putting yourself in a place of service to others
mm,
um, should not be underestimated. People still respond well to that, and they're going to think
mm,
of you when things come up. And I think that's been a blessing
mm.
for me in the Humoriso era.
That is so good. Oh, so I wrote down taking interest. I loved how you framed that up. And then how when you said Mike took a shot on me. Like we all can like relate to someone that says, "Hey, I believe in you.
Yes.
I'm going to help you move forward." I love that. But I hadn't heard people frame this up like you just did, and that is just the kindness of
Yeah.
people. You talk about referrals, people talking about good about you and all of that. But kindness, that's just such a powerful word. I love all that. By the way, if you are listening right now, you need to be taking notes. I've already got a full page of notes here, and this is going to be so good. Hey, well, let's talk leadership. And
Yeah.
one of the things, whenever I talk with my guests, John, and we talk about leadership, I like to ask a question because it can mean something different to many different people. But when I say, "Hey, John, what's leadership to you?" How do you respond to that?
It's probably a fractional response. So bear with me for a second. The first thing is I don't think everything is leadership. I think some things are management.
Okay.
And we need to be okay with some moments of or some people who choose to manage.
Mm,
Not everything is leadership. And so how do I know that? Because if you're leading, you should be able to stop and turn around. Is anybody following you? If
mm,
not, then you're not leading. You
mm,
might be managing circumstance, you might be managing situations, you might be managing product line, you might be managing projects with people. That's cool. It's necessary. We have to
mm.
have that. So
Yeah.
for me, I think leadership leans in a bit more when you get to the heart of the matter. How is it that this moment is investment oriented, not purely, though partly, in the work, but also in the people performing the work? So
Mm,
there's a high value placed on compassion. I think there's a high value placed on clarity,
mm,
because you're helping to give people that clear direction. I think it's extraordinarily intentional. You can't be a leader by happenstance for very
mm,
long. And it's not just by title. You don't become a leader because you've been promoted to vice president.
mm,
No way. That's not what it means. But I think sometimes we've probably let it be about that. And that's why
mm,
some of those leadership opportunities have not gone well
mm,
because we really didn't set up the construct well. I think the relational component is important, but it has to go in a purpose. That's the intentionality.
mm,
Where are we taking these relationships? Where are those who are involved see themselves being able to go? That takes a leader to sort of
mm,
illuminate those doors, not choosing them for individuals,
mm.
but illuminating the doors of what could be.
Illuminate. I love that. I was thinking about when I wrote down compassion and I really like how you framed up clarity. But when you said intention, I think we use that word a lot now. And I'm curious, just like I gave you a few questions before we got on the show, but this is one I didn't give you. I'm curious, was there a moment like when you started becoming more intentional? Like
Yeah,
what caused
yeah,
that? Like,
yeah.
talk about that for a second.
Yeah, and I can feel myself get emotional. So I would say that when there were wonderful people in my life who did that for me. I didn't
Oh,
know that there was such a line of demarcation between being intentional and not. And when I had some wonderful people early in my life who
mm,
chose to be intentional with me, though they probably could have had 10 reasons why they didn't need to be
mm,
intentional with me. The care and compassion and concern and the opportunities to uplift and again shine a light on you are more than the sum of your circumstances.
mm,
I think when you experience that, you want to just do that for so many others. And for me, that was the tipping point when I saw that being done for me. And
mm,
the truth behind it, it wasn't that just somebody was saying, um, oh, keep reaching for the stars, right? Those kinds of
mm,
generalized things, but rather,
mhm,
I know you. I know the joy that you experience in certain things. I know the pain that you experience in some other things.
mm,
And in light of all of that, here's what's possible.
mm,
Super intentional, and I can't help but just turn around. I mean, that's my joy, is to lift others up for success. I mean,
mm,
that's the legacy that I pray to leave behind, because Humareso is awesome.
mm,
Love the company. We're having a
mm,
great time. Is Humareso to be my legacy? I would hope it's not my primary legacy. And I know
mm.
that might sound funny to some who are trying to build a business, but I don't want it to be about the business. I want it to be about the impact that the business had on the lives of individuals, about the opportunity I've had to be an
Mm.
impact positively in the lives of others. That's, to me, that's what it's about.
You said you didn't want to get emotional. I'm feeling myself getting emotional. I have chills as you talk about that. And it reminds me of this quote I heard many years ago, and it said, "It's not about the things you want to achieve. It's about the person you want to be." And
Yeah.
you were able to see that, how they were. And they're like, "I want to be
Yeah.
that." And then
Yeah.
that moved you in that direction. I love that. That is so
Yeah.
good, John.
I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I think that in the most non-trite way possible, I have, for all the difficulty that has happened in my life, and I'm not downplaying any of it,
Hmm.
but for all of it, I still have a very blessed life.
Mm,
And I think that being an encouragement to the glass being half full instead of half empty,
mm,
while the line of water may be the same in the glass, the vantage point of perspective
mm,
is the critical switch that we need to be much more of an encouragement to. I know all the reasons why the glass is half empty.
mm.
I know them all. Let me tell you why the glass is half full.
Mm, that's so good. As you shared that, I was going back to my 10 things when I wrote my book, Life in the Leadership Lane. I wrote a section on 10 things
Yeah.
high performers are most grateful for after I would ask them about gratitude. And one of the things was I'm grateful for failure
Mm-hmm.
and all the tough times. And that's what you're talking about. Like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
grateful for those because that's what led me to where I am today. And that's so good. Hey, well, one of the things I did want to talk to you about today was the future of work, the future of HR. And I know that that's one of the things that really caught my attention. You talk about that.
Mm.
And I hear others talk about that. And it's a big topic. Like it catches people's attention when someone
Yeah.
says, "Hey, we're going to talk about the future HR, the future work," people all of a sudden say, "Hey, I want to see what's in the future." So when you, I don't know, let's just kind of kick it off like this. Like when you hear that, the future of HR, like what do you think about, and what are others thinking about? Do you kind of find a common thread there?
I do. The first thing I'll say is, we in the industry have talked about the future of the work for decades.
Mm.
This is not new in terms of the topic.
Yeah.
What the answer is, though, obviously, I think has changed through the years. But we love to be sort of that uh, prediction model, futurist oriented,
Hmm.
right? Kind of discipline. But there's a couple of truths I think that we have to reckon with right now. One, AI. Well,
Hmm.
we're not going to get through this without talking about AI, right? The future of work is going to consist of a lot of that. There's
Right.
not going to be a place to hide from it. It's
Mm,
already probably more embedded than we thought it would be 18 months ago. I don't
mm,
know that everybody could have predicted as much of the AI as we're seeing, AI components as we're seeing in platforms that have been sort of legacy platforms, let alone the ones that are younger and more nimble to adopt some of these things. It's fascinating to watch
mm,
what it's done to the recruiting process. Really, the full talent acquisition consideration as far as sourcing as well, like those areas. And so I think the future work is going to consist of an adoption of AI and a willingness on our part in the broader human resources discipline. And I'm going to call it from talent acquisition through talent management.
okay.
All of those pieces, we have to reckon with the fact that this is going to take over some of the transactional pieces of existence that some of us have just hung our hat on. And we're
Mm,
going to have to be okay with knowing our role has to evolve as well. It's not just the adoption of a tool, it's what this tool will do to change what I now will be about moving forward. And so I think the other part of, to answer your question, the other part of the future of work that I see is I'll call it that culture is going to become a much stronger strategic asset.
mm,
That's what we are going to have to double down on within our companies to say, as a result of our willingness to adopt some of these transactional support structures, AI, machine learning, some of these other,
mm,
again, software pieces. Um, it frees me up to be able to double down on the culture that we're building, the way that we develop talent, the way that we have a value system around integrity and transparency, what that
mm,
looks like within our organization. How do we affirm healthy performance? What might that look like within the kind of culture that we're looking to build? We may not necessarily be
mm,
able to do things as cleanly quota driven as some organizations do,
mm,
but we may have to reframe why we measure what we measure and ensure that those metrics really speak to those things. So performance, I think, is going to wind up having sort of an epiphany over the next year. I
mm,
don't see us being able to do appraisals in the same way that we've been doing them. The timeline doesn't work for it anymore. It's got to be much more continuous,
mm,
much more consistent,
mm,
much more vibrant. That's the future of work that people need to be ready for if they're not already ready for it now.
mm. What about, and this is so good. I appreciate you sharing that. I hadn't really thought about the way you framed that up from the culture standpoint of as being this an asset, strengthen our asset. What about I'm curious, like as you sit there and talk about this as a leader, like what, how are we going to lead differently, or are we going to lead differently? And
Yeah.
there's just so much here.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts around that?
Yes, is my simple answer to it. Yeah, we're going to have to lead differently. I'm going to pick on one perspective,
Okay.
just for the sake of our conversation.
Okay.
So there's a legacy role called HRBP, the Human Resources Business Partner,
Right.
and those the many listeners you have for this podcast. There are so many that may actually even be an HR business partner,
Hmm.
right? Sort of raising their hand right now.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me. I think that role is going to undergo an extraordinary transformation
Mm,
because, and I mean this generally, not specifically. So
mm.
if anybody's listening, I'm not talking to you if it doesn't apply to you. But I think that we're not going to be able to get away with just calling ourselves business partners and not really being a business partner. I think
Mm,
what we've been for some HRBPs has really been more on the tactical end still of HR. And so we are called in to be a business partner, and our employee relations component, for instance, is handling investigations, making sure that the right training happens after we do that investigation.
mm,
And now we can fill our report out and put it in a file. We still have a whole lot of that transactional component going on in that role. So to answer your question, that as one example, we're going to have to be much more of a strategic partner. I think HRBPs are becoming HRSPs, and they're going to be few and far between. If you
Mm,
can't sit in a strategic partner capacity for human resources, and that is not just a buzzword, it's
mm,
absolutely moving beyond compliance only, but compliance as it influences culture and what that then means for the people that we have in light of the performance that we expect them to demonstrate. It
mm,
is going to require a whole lot of strategy for skills, for general knowledge in certain areas, for aptitudes in how to pass along the knowledge that you and the skill experience that you have, that you've more than just have comprehension about, but really have synthesis about. How am I really giving this away? How am
mm,
I really setting this up for nimble movement? Because the commerce of today is going to look different in 3 months, six
mm,
months.
mm,
Some industries right now are just, they're moving at warp speed, it feels like.
mm.
And to be able to keep up with that is going to take critical thinking that a strategic partner is going to have to demonstrate.
That is, oh man, that is, as I think about that, and there are, I've interviewed several HRBPs, and I think there's people out there listening right now going, you know what, I need to think through this. I need to figure out how can I be, when I think about that, I think about, something that I heard many years ago, and I think it might have been when I took my HR certification. They talked about how you need to know the business.
Yeah,
You got to figure out how to add value. It's not just about serving the HR function. It's about serving the business
yeah.
and inside that business, serving the people. And for those who are listening right now, like how, like adding value doesn't change. That's like, as we
Mhm.
think about, hey, the future of work, one thing that hasn't changed is you've got to figure out a way to add value.
Yes.
I don't know. Are there some things that you're seeing out there that people are doing? They're like, hey, here's some things that people can do to continue moving forward as a business leader.
It's a great question. Thank you for it. It's a great question. One of the things that I would say is reframing where the definitions are coming from
Mm,
as far as knowing the business. We have leadership that, and this I know is going to resonate with so many folks listening in. We still have leaders business leaders who C-suite, who still look at human resources as only compliance. And so the
mm,
way in which they want you to know the business is to keep us from getting sued, is to
mm,
make sure the handbook is updated, is to make sure that we've got the right filing done. And so those that have been told, well, you do know the business because we can't get caught doing X, Y, and Z. That's your lane. That's
mm.
how we've helped you to know the business. That's not knowing the business, right?
Yeah.
That is helping to keep the business out of trouble.
Mm,
And I think that we've allowed other people to define what knowing the business is for us. That has to stop. And that's step one for us, to sit down with business leaders and say, okay, let's talk about workforce planning. And I'll pick on one skill, Bruce, to
okay.
answer your question. Like, let's talk about workforce planning. Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of hiring. We've got a couple of people who left, and we're going to fill the roles that are open. That is, I will be my Philadelphia person for a second, buddy. That's not any workforce planning. What you talking about, right? Like that's replacing an opening. That has nothing to do with strategic
Mm,
planning in workforce, right? Workforce development.
yeah.
This is about, where is the business? Where do we see it going? Here I am as the human resources professional. Let me tell you what skill alignment needs to look like for these
Mm,
particular roles and these particular divisions, and why. Because in 6 months, we're going to find ourselves not being ahead of the curve, but now behind the eight ball. And it will happen that quickly because that's what's happening with technology, and that's what's happening with the workforce right now. We cannot assume that someone is going to stay with us for 5 to 7 years. You
mm,
cannot assume that. And so if I put all my eggs in a basket of, oh, buddy, start with us, and in 5 years you're going to be manager, in 7 years you'll be director.
mm.
that ship has sailed. People know that you're lying. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They know that you're lying because not everybody can be the manager. You can't have seven people start at the same time and all
Mm.
of them become a manager in 5 years. It's impossible. There's only one manager role. Like, why would we do that? And I think that's why we have to start being much more creative in
Mm.
workforce planning around the skill investment we're putting into people, the way in which those competencies can be displayed within our organization. And as the HR practitioner, let me map out the opportunities. Let me show you where this can go.
Mm.
Let me talk about adding verticals to what we currently do.
Mm.
Now I'm developing business lines. I'm the HR person. Wait a minute.
Mm.
No, that's what we have to be able to get into those conversations deeply and help encourage people in.
And now all of a sudden, also, your brand looks different inside the organization. You are looked at a strategic partner. You're very vital
Yep.
to the organization. This is
Yep.
not just my HR person. This is a business leader helping
100%.
our executive team. I love that. I want to kind of tie wrap this up
Sure.
conversation around. There's some people listening right now. They're like, you know what? I know I could just type in Chat GPT and say, hey, how can I become more strategic? And it might give me a lot of stuff, but I'll be overwhelmed because I got all this other stuff to do. Is this something that you have? Will people call you and just say, hey, I'm trying to do this?
Yeah.
And then that's what you consult on? Because I'm thinking that's probably your lane.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would say it's not exclusive to me. There's some
Right,
other wonderful
right,
people who are
right,
doing great
right,
work like this
right.
as well. But yeah, I mean, that is part of what we do.
Hmm.
And you know that we've got some wonderful folks at the Humareso team, Robin Schooling and Keith Enox and Joel Riley and BJ Anderson and Stefan Liebhart and like
Mm.
folks that are invested in scalability for organizations. And so this sort of fractional
Yeah.
CHRO, this fractional, I would say, a mentor to
Mm.
existing HR leadership within an organization. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
calling because it's I would say, Bruce, it's 50-50 in terms of what they're calling for. For some of them, 50% of it is I don't even know where to start. I know I need to get to this consideration of, John, as you mentioned, workforce planning or strategic business partnership. How
Hmm.
do I get there? Absolutely. But the other half is how do I get the organization to believe that I know what I'm talking about?
Mm.
I have spent the time to try to be developed and learn
Mm.
those things, but I can't make an inroad in the
Mm.
organization I'm with for them to let me exercise the skills that I've been developing. How do I do that? Both, I would say, come into us quite a bit.
I love that. Man, we could have a whole conversation on belief.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
good. So good. Hey, well, and I told you time was going to fly. I do want to ask you about this podcast that you host, but First Coffee. What's that
Oh,
all about? For those who
yes.
are listening, they're like, hey, I want to tune into a show. Talk about that for a second.
It's so funny, Bruce. Thank you for asking. It's so funny because, we just had this like really robust, deep, but probably for some people, they might be like, oh my goodness, like this really went somewhere. And then they watch But First Coffee and they're like, he is so silly. How is this the same
Uh,
person?
uh,
Jackie Clayton, and for those of you, if you don't know Jackie, I mean, she's just wonderful. Jackie and I do this live, LinkedIn Live, weekly webcast called But First Coffee, Thursdays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And it is the two of us for an hour uh, with a cup of coffee. And honestly, that's how the show name started,
mm,
is
mm,
because we just felt like some people might be curious to listen in basically to a conversation that we would have. It is unscripted. We
mm.
have a topic that we start with each week, but it is very reminiscent of, for those of a certain age, old school Regis and Kathy Lee. It's grabbing a cup of coffee and the two of us just,
I love that.
talking. And I will tell you the best part of it all, of course, I've known Jackie forever, so that's fun.
Yeah.
But the audience interaction, the amount of people who are watching, who are adding to the chat while we're discussing, we're sharing
Mm,
their thoughts. And that part for me, and I know Jackie feels the same way, so fun, so meaningful. So yeah, we love it. We've been doing it for years now, and we plan on continuing. So until somebody tells us that's enough,
I've had
we're
enough.
gonna keep
No more
that's
coffee.
right.
I love that. That's so good. I will put the link in the show notes so you can
Thank
click
you,
on that link and you can
thank you.
check that out. I love that. Okay, last question before we go. It's time to accelerate. I always like to
Yep.
ask my guests to give them a chance to share some advice that you've been given, during your career, maybe as early on
Mm,
from a family member or late in your career. Some advice you just find yourself sharing with others.
yeah, I come back to it regularly. Early on, a coworker, um, she she said to me one day, I was so passionate about so much. Everything was a cause, I would say, very early on in my career. So it's my
Mm.
20s. And she said to me, choose your battles.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, I know. Yeah, I am. I'm ready to battle every time. And she said to me, um, uh, listen to me. Choose your battles.
Mm.
Right now, you're letting the battles choose you
Mm.
because you're ready to go every time. You choose your battles. That means you're gonna have to lay aside some things that you could fight, and you might even win, but is the expense of energy
Yeah.
and relational collateral worth it for
Yeah.
every single thing? And I have to tell you, the answer was no. It was not
Mm.
always worth it, but I was immature in that
Mm.
perspective. And so I think about choose your battles often, and it's one of those things I share with people pretty regularly.
That, that's great advice. I love that. It actually sounds like the name of your future book. Choose your
Yes, it might be. It might
That
be.
is so good. Okay, hey, we're going to shift to it's time to accelerate. I'm just
Yeah,
going to ask you a couple of fun questions as we kind of wrap up the show. You're a continuous learner. I mean, you're continuously learning what's going on in the
yeah.
workplace so you can be prepared to help others. But what's something you've always wanted to learn?
I've always wanted to learn to play the piano.
Oh,
Isn't that funny? Like I've just
yeah.
always, and I don't know how to play any instrument at all, but I've always wanted to learn to play the piano.
I love that.
Never have, but
I
it's not too late. It's not too late.
No, it's not too late. I actually shared that with my wife, and several years ago, she bought me piano lessons for my birthday. And I took piano lessons for a couple of years, and I
Yeah.
was getting pretty good, but it requires a lot of practice.
Yes, it does. And I don't want to start it if I can't do it well. I know, I'm with you. And my wife
So,
can play. And so
hey,
I
oh,
enjoy her playing, and I
okay.
just yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. I can play Happy Birthday. I love that. Okay,
I
hey,
could do Jaws. I do the
oh,
two keys for the
dun,
Jaws
dun,
theme.
dun,
That's my
dun, dun,
yes.
dun. That is fantastic. How about you do a lot of traveling. I know I got to see you in November at TalentNet
Yeah,
last year here in
yeah.
Dallas. What, you got a favorite city?
Venice comes to mind.
Mm,
I just enjoyed that so much. Just
yeah.
walking around. Kathy and I got to go a couple of years ago, and it just was glorious.
Mm,
Just glorious.
love that.
Beautiful
Love that.
place.
It's on my bucket list. How
Yeah.
about something that energizes you, John?
This, I
Mm,
mean, I just enjoy being able to be relational. And so being with
mm,
people, and I know that, you've got to recharge your batteries. I'm totally there. I
yeah.
get it.
Right.
But I just love being able to kind of be in this stage of life where I'm fortunate enough to be able to chat with all kinds of
Mm,
folks and friends for years who it's just an enjoyable time, and
mm.
it energizes me. Like I'll get off this time here with you and be ready to like just knock through walls. So it's good.
I love that. I'm right there with you. Okay, here's my last question. It's probably I ask every guest this question. It's my favorite question, and that is John, 10 years older, is around the
Yeah.
corner right now, and he's knocking at your door, and you are going to go answer that door. What's he going to tell you?
If it's me in 10 years, I'm going to say, first, we will probably cry in the doorway together.
Mm,
Because I'm overwhelmed at the thought of being here for another 10 years, which
mm,
is in a good way. Like, great,
yeah,
what a blessing.
yeah.
I think he's going to tell me that, and I know this may sound um, surprising to some. I hope he tells me I'm okay,
Mm,
because there's still a portion of me every day that seeks confirmation that I'm walking as I should.
mm.
And so to have me 10 years from now greet me at the door and say, "You're good. You're walking as you should.
Hmm.
It's all okay." I would appreciate that greatly.
I love that. I think we all need that from
Yeah.
time to time. We just need
Yeah.
someone to just say, "Hey, man, you're on the right track." Because
Yes.
we all like we wonder. We're like, "Hey, I think," and you know what? I think it's because we care so much. We care so much about serving people and
Yes.
doing our very best.
Yeah.
Am I doing that?
I agree with you. And I also think it's such a great responsibility
Mm,
to, I teased about being 35 years, right,
mm,
in this industry. But with that, also, I feel a great responsibility for everybody that's been coming. I mean, I look at the
mm,
folks that are also doing other podcasts and stuff who
hmm.
are, 20, 30 years younger than I am. And I love that,
Yeah,
that they're doing their thing. And I
yeah,
want to be responsible to love and encourage them as well. I mean, there's just some wonderful folks doing that. And I have a responsibility in that.
yeah. That's so good. This has been so much fun. I told you time was going to fly. Hey, for those who heard this conversation, they probably have a couple of pages of notes, just like I do. But they want to, I don't know, they want to follow you, or maybe they want to connect with you in some way. What's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, humareso.com. You,
Okay.
you go to the site and you'll be able to connect with me or LinkedIn. If you
Yep.
just search John Baldino HR, I'll come right up. And please feel free to connect, reach out. Very big, believe it or not, I read my messages. So if you heard this, like, please say that. Don't just send
Yep.
me a connection
Love that.
request. Put it with a note to say, I listened to you, and this is what I want to chat with you
Mm.
about, or this is why I want to connect with you. That context is really helpful.
I mean, it goes back to the word you used earlier, and that was intention.
Mm,
And hey, I want to connect with you because of this, and that can
yeah,
really go a long way. So this has been so good. I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your perspective. And man, I can't wait to watch your road ahead, man. I just want to wish you
thank
the
you.
very best, my friend.
Thank you, Bruce. And I really want to thank you for having me on. Again, I know we've been trying to do this for a while, and I'm glad it's worked out. So thank you for having me on.
I love it. Okay, I can't wait to share it. I'll talk to you later, man.